Hello and welcome to Build Series Sydney. I'm your host, Danny Clayton, and joining us today is a Hollywood powerhouse here just a few hours before the premiere of his latest film, Last Christmas. Let's check out the trailer. Welcome, actor, writer, director, man of many suits, Paul Feig.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Happy to be here in Sydney.
Cool.
I love it. I have not been in Australia since we were promoting Bridesmaids. So
It's been a little while.
It has been a while.
Yeah.
There's a lot more tall buildings. Well, actually, in Melbourne there were. Here, there's always tall buildings.
Yeah, and I mean,
Sydney.
exciting because you hear, of course, that tonight is the premiere of
Yeah.
Last Christmas. So
Yep.
what do you do? What does a director do on premiere night? Take us through it.
We primp and get ready and look beautiful. No, I mean, I just look forward to it. It's, we make movies for audiences, and, we spend a year and a half kind of getting it together and shooting it and editing and all that. And you really just kind of look forward to the moment when you can actually show it to an audience. You've got it right, and we're very, very happy with the film. So,
Sure. I mean, obviously, you're quite experienced. This isn't your first rodeo, but
No.
how does it feel to watch a movie that you've made with an audience that it's seeing it for the first time?
Well, it's a thrill. I mean, that's the most fun part. I mean, honestly, the most fun times are when we're doing test screenings, when we're first kind of putting the movie together, because that's the only time an audience has an absolutely pure experience with a movie, because they don't know anything. They've not seen a frame of it. They don't know what it looks like. They don't know anything about it. So it's kind of fun to discover it with them, and that's the best way we can tell how the movie's looking. But by the time we get to the premiere, people have seen trailers like that, which is great. But it's a thrill. You just I was a stand-up comedian for years and years, and I kind of put together a movie the same way I used to put together my stand-up act. Just keep testing it and trying different jokes and take these out and make sure that these work. Yeah, and then by the time we get to in front of the premiere crowd, we hope it's working pretty well.
Yeah, and so I mean, I've seen it and loved it. I thought it was great. And one of the real strengths that I found was Kate. Of course, the character played by Emilia Clarke. She's lovable, she's funny, very flawed, and I think that Emilia does just a bang-on job. But this isn't a kind of role that we normally see her play.
Yeah.
And so for a comedic role that she seems to do so naturally, how did you know that she was right for this particular character?
Well, I met with her about 4 years ago. I was just a big fan of Game of Thrones, and so was just curious to meet her. And she came into the office, and I expected she was going to be this very serious actress. I thought she'd be Khaleesi, basically. I don't know why. And she was hilarious. She was really charming and funny. And she just kept making me laugh the whole time. And so I go, like, you have to be in a comedy. And she goes, I'd love to be. And but then that was like 3 years ago, and then I find this script that Emma Thompson sent me, and I was like, this is the role for her, because she could do it all. Because, like you say, she's a very challenging character in the movie, which I love. And, there's so few women's roles to be the lead of a movie where they can't be likable in the beginning, which is, such a ridiculous misogynist thing. Guys, we have men all the time can be, messes and all, lashing out of the world, and we all go, oh, he's great. But somehow women weren't allowed to. So I really latched onto that with her. And she's the kind of actress that you really just root for no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, this wasn't something I was thinking of talking to you about, but one of the things I did like about her character, as you're talking about as a strong lead female, is that she seemed to embody almost like a modern day woman, as in someone where it's completely acceptable to go out and have many sexual partners. And do you think that's something that is important to show in movies, this new kind of more open-minded approach to being a young woman?
Yeah, you want to show the experience that people are having. I mean, look, Emma Thompson wrote this script, and she really, she's a hardcore feminist, which is so fantastic. And she wanted to have this thing where you go like, yeah, here's a woman actually, doing what she wants to do. She's making mistakes, as she wants to, and she's in control of her life. She's just kind of gone a little out of control of it at that moment. But no, we never want, we're united in the fact that we love good, strong, independent women. And I don't even like the word strong, because there's this thing in Hollywood, they're always talking about like strong female characters. And I don't like that, because that seems to sound very one-dimensional to me.
Yeah.
I much prefer flawed, the strong, weak, insecure, overconfident, everything wrapped up, because that's what we all are. And we want to show that three-dimensionality.
Yeah. Well, I thought that she was absolutely sensational, and also she worked so well with the other leading man, Henry, and there was this like real kind of tension, this real kind of natural chemistry between them. How do you create that between two actors who may never have met each other before?
Well, you don't really. You just kind of you cast the people you think are going to be great. You know, when you're dealing with non-stars or kind of new actors, you can usually get them together and do what we call chemistry reads and see if they have chemistry. Actually, when I did Simple Favor, Henry had only done Crazy Rich Asians and it hadn't even come out yet. So in order to get him that role, he had to do a bunch of chemistry reads with Blake Lively to see if they were great together. But then for this, now he's a star and Amelia's obviously a big star. So you just kind of hire them and you hope they have chemistry. But I just know them both so well, and they're so lovely that I just knew they would get along. And the first time they met, they just started joking around and having a great time, and then it shows in the movie.
Definitely. And what was it about Henry that made you want to work with him again?
I just love him. I absolutely love that guy. He's the nicest man in the world. He's super funny and just really fun to hang out with and just fun to work with. Very he's all about the work, and he wants to make it right. And when I read the script, it just felt like it actually felt like Henry. And I was kind of like, oh, Henry is Tom, so I just want to show that side to an audience.
Yeah. God, he's so charming. I was hoping you were going to tell me he was a really nasty man.
I know it wouldn't be great if I could say, he's a monster.
Good looking, charming, talented.
Yeah, no,
the worst.
He's got it all. How dare he?
Yeah. One of the other characters in the film is London itself. I find it absolutely mind-boggling that you somehow managed to shoot a film in one of the most populated cities in Europe.
Yes.
How?
By shooting in the middle of the night when there's nobody but drunk people on the streets. That's what we really had to start shooting every night at like 2 a.m. and shoot through till noon. Yeah, that's the only way we could do it. But it was, you were tired, but then the minute you got there and you saw how beautiful it was, and just the fact that you kind of owned London for a few hours was really exciting. And I really rushed production so that we could at least shoot for the first 3 weeks before Christmas last year. Okay. So we got all the Christmas lights, all their decorations that were naturally up. Oh,
dear. Are you saying that you made Christmas extend past Christmas?
Well, for my cast, I did. Yeah,
oh, dear.
Yeah, because we did 3 weeks, then we took 2 weeks off for Christmas, and then we had 2 months after that. So the weird thing is just keeping everybody in the Christmas mood on the set, because, by the time you hit the end, by New Year's, you're like, all right, screw the holidays. Now we're back into the year.
Oh, dear.
But yeah.
That's like my mum. She'll put the decorations up, day 1, December, and then leave them way into January.
Yeah.
You have to say no. Did someone at some point say, you got to take these down?
No. Well, here's the thing. Actually, when we were living in London doing this, because I did post-production in London too, and my wife and I rented this really nice flat, and we decorated it like crazy for Christmas. But then after Christmas, it was like, well, I have to have Christmas go for me until September because I got to finish this movie. So I said, we just decided we're going to leave them up. So we left the Christmas they were up all year long. So I never lost the spirit, if you will.
Okay.
We looked crazy with the neighbors, but
I bet they would have been very
petitions were being signed. We were being thrown out of the neighborhood.
Because your family on your mother's side are British.
Yep.
Did that give you a little bit more insight into filming in London? And
well, my wife and I bonded over our love of London. We're such Anglophiles. I mean, the first time I went was I was 13 years old. I was there and I just fell in love with it. And then we've been together 29 years now, and we've gone so many times. Yeah. Our 25th wedding anniversary was just last month. So
congratulations! Round of applause.
Oh, no. Oh, thank you. That poor woman. But no, so I just have always loved it, and I see it the way that an outsider sees a city that they love, in a way that when you live in a city, you start to just, you focus on your routine. You don't look around at everything. And so it's really exciting to show off both the really famous parts of London that everybody knows, but also discover and bring to the screen like Brixton and Electric Avenue and Brick Lane and all these places where, where just these vibrant communities are outside of the center of London. And it was just, because the movie's really about diversity and about what a great melting pot London is, and about how we're just all in this world together, and how we have to all stick together and understand each other and love each other's foibles and our strengths and everything.
Yeah, I mean, the tenderness towards the city itself and the people in it does show. But something else that really kind of hammers that home as well is the soundtrack from music from George Michael, Wham, and there's this strange melancholy feeling that while you're listening to the music that it gives. Obviously, we lost George on on Christmas.
Yeah.
And just the thematic sound of his music kind of comes from the movie. Was this something that you were quite focused on?
Well, I mean, the movie was the genesis of the movie was one of our producers, David Livingstone, brought the idea of making a movie based loosely on the song Last Christmas to Emma about 8 years prior. And she worked on it, and kind of broke the story and came up with it and then talked to George and told George all about it. And he loved the idea and he loved the treatment and all that. And then sadly we lost him. But when I came on about a year and a half ago, it was in the script. She had written in a few places like, oh, this would be a nice place to play some George. But it was never planned to be like the George Michael music movie. But as I was prepping the movie and I was going through his back catalog, so I knew all the hits like Faith and Freedom and all the Wham stuff, but I didn't know the deeper tracks from like Listen Without Prejudice and Faith and all those ones, and then the later albums like Older and stuff like that. And you start finding these amazing songs, and the movie started to beg for those songs in a weird organic way. When I found the song Heal the Pain, which I'd never heard before, and I now think it's one of the greatest songs ever written. I mean, I'm so obsessed with this song, but it became even more the sound or the theme of the movie than the song Last Christmas, because it's about a woman healing the pain of her life and of her family and all that. And so when we went into production, we had to have the rights to a certain amount of songs. We had 5 that we had gotten them to sign off on, and by the time I finished the movie, we had 15 songs. So we had to go back, and we have one song that's over the last couple scenes and the end credits that is a song that has never been heard before. It was one he recorded a few months before he died and finished for this new album he was working on, and it goes through all through the end credits. But it's a beautiful song, really energetic, really fun. But if you listen to the lyrics and you stay around for the credits, it's really sort of his credo in life. He was talking about how he tried to be a good person, all the things he wouldn't do, and it's such an honor to have that music.
Yeah, and the responsibility for Amelia to sing a George Michael song, that must have weighed quite heavily on her, and she did it herself.
Oh yeah, she's got a beautiful voice. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, she actually sings a couple of songs because she and Henry actually sing "Heal the Pain" to each other in one of the more romantic scenes, and then she sings "Last Christmas" in it. No, she's such a trooper, and again, she's got this beautiful voice. When I hired her, I actually, it's a movie about a woman who wants to be a singer.
Yeah.
I was so excited she wanted to do the movie that we signed the contracts and finished everything, and then somebody said to me, "Can she sing?" And I was like, "I don't know if she can sing." So I was kind of like, "Oh no, what am I going to do?" But then I looked around on the internet and I found this Dolce & Gabbana commercial she had done, and she sings this Italian song, and it's great. And I said, "Is that you?" And she goes, "Oh, yeah, it's me. I sing." I say, "Oh, thank God."
Well, I'm like,
yeah, I know.
I just like few.
You should know what a diligent director I am. Like, "Oh yeah, can you sing?" Okay, great.
Yeah, and your directing style, something that has become quite apparent. I mean, I remember watching this clip online of a 10-minute improvised scene with Kristen Wiig and a 15-year-old girl called Mia. Yeah. And it was just laugh a second for 10 minutes, which obviously you couldn't put that in a film. Exactly. So I wanted to know, is improvising something that you have to be able to do if you want to be in a Paul film?
It depends. I mean, it's always it's good if you have the ability to do that. It depends on the movie too. I mean, we didn't do a ton of improvising on this movie because Emma's script was so tight. But at the same time, part of their chemistry comes from the fact that when we're going around the lines, they're doing little interchange with each other and just being natural and improvising with each other. And you want that. It's all about capturing lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And if everybody's so rehearsed and the lines are so written, I feel you lose a little bit of an energy. And for me, I don't even like to rehearse. I kind of like just put the cameras up and go like, let's just start going. Because then you got to get these really natural things. Then I can go like, hey, try this, or they'll go, oh, I want to try this. Or I'll have one actor surprise somebody with something else, just because you get a natural reaction. And I try to shoot them both at the same time.
Yeah. Do you ever cultivate an atmosphere which gives people the room to improvise?
Oh, you have to, yeah. I would say that's my biggest job, is I have to create a safe environment for my actors where they feel like they can try anything and there's no mistakes. Because look, I've had plenty of times where somebody does something, I'm like, oh, God, that's awful. But I'm like, okay, cool. Like I never would go like, hey, that's terrible. How dare you? I go, great, we got that. Now let's try some other thing. But what happens is so many times I get in the editing room and the thing I went like, ugh, is actually really good, and we end up using it because it's just not what I was expecting.
Sure.
But it was very natural for them, and they know the character better than I do once they're playing it. So I have to kind of get out of their way and let them do their thing.
Wow. Well, so when do you know when to hit cut? Are you an editor's worst nightmare? Like, do they get hours?
Well, fortunately, my editors are used to it. My one editor who's worked on everything with me, he was even on Freaks and Geeks, is used to it, and he actually prefers to get a ton of stuff because then he can weed through all this stuff. And then when we get into the test screening process, if we do a test screening and like a bunch of jokes don't work, we go like, great, take that out. Let's try these other ones. But I've actually been more script supervisors I've broken in the past. We were doing Spy. There was bless her, she was such a sweetheart. In Budapest, we had this Hungarian script supervisor. We were ad-libbing, and she was trying to get everything down, and like about 3 times during production, she burst into tears.
Oh no!
And I was like, no, please, don't even try to write it down. It's on film. Like, just let it go.
Oh, fantastic. So you brought up Freaks and Geeks, which is now 20 years old, which is so wild. Looking back, how do you think it's aged?
I'm really happy. I mean, the fact that it still has people that watch it and it still means something to them, that's all you can ask. I mean, sometimes I watch and I go like, oh, it's slower than we would do now. Or, it definitely, styles change and all that. But we also went for a very naturalistic style, which at the time was very not being done in comedy. So that's pretty much why we got canceled. People just didn't quite know what to make of the show because they were used to things more like, there was a show called Malcolm in the Middle. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's all very amped up. It's very funny, but it's all very like high energy kind of Jim Carrey kind of type comedy. And we came along with this very, very behavioral, and also the stories were pretty downbeat. There's no big victories, which is what the network hated all the time. It's like, can't they win? It's like, well, they're alive at the end of the episode. They won. They fight and live to see another day. Who had more victories than that in high school? I mean, that's about the most you can hope for.
And I mean, when we do look at that show, it changed the face of comedy. And during that period of time, did you have any inkling that it would have such a huge effect on comedy, on television, on the way that people shoot content?
Well, it's nice. No, not at that time, just because we were just trying to do what we all liked and what we felt was real. But we were always behind the 8 ball with our ratings. And so we just always felt like we were failing because, we were low rated. I think the only time we ever had really good ratings was the first half of our premiere. Like we did really well, but then at the commercial break at the middle of the show, the ratings dropped because that's when Eli like falls off the bleachers and breaks his arm. So there's this, kid screaming in pain on the ground, and you just see all these TVs turning off. Like, no, I don't need that.
Yeah.
But no, but it's nice that it's kind of lived on.
Or particularly with the way that people consume content and now stream it, and Apple Television, Netflix, all of that. It still has this cult following, which is incredibly passionate. So do you think that if you were to revisit and create a Freaks and Geeks for today, that it would not be cancelled, that it'd still be going?
Well, I think if the show that we did back then was on now, I think we would have at least gotten another year out of it, because the critics we were so critically acclaimed, it was amazing. So we kind of came into being on the air like, oh my God, we're a hit, but that doesn't translate into people watching. But these days, that much critical acclaim, I think, would get you at least another season to let people catch up with it. But it was brutal back then. I mean, it was game shows were getting us canceled.
Sure. And is there any sense in pride when you see the actors that are now so prolific in Hollywood, the ones that are dominating you, Seth Rogen, James Franco, when you look at those actors and know that you did a huge part in creating the step into the industry, is there a sense of pride when you see that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's more kind of like that they feel like they're my kids, because I don't have kids. My wife and I don't have kids. We have dogs.
They're still kids.
Yeah, I know.
Fur kids.
They'll never break your heart. They'll just die after 15 years. I know. It's terrible,
It's
right?
not true.
I know.
It's not true.
No,
everybody.
they'll live forever.
Dogs never die.
Yeah, I know, exactly. We've been together so long. So many dogs. No, it's I just get really proud of them for being so great. But I remember, we were doing the pilot got picked up when we were doing like a shoot of all these promos before we went into production of the actual show, and Seth Rogen was 16 at the time, and he comes over to Judd and I, he's like, yeah, my buddy Evan and I wrote this script about two guys going to get beer. You're like, oh, well, that sounds good for you, Seth. That sounds cute.
Yeah,
it's super bad. So so that's the level of talent he had. And now, oh my God, I'm like, well, he's younger than me, but I go like, Seth, how do you do all this stuff? He's got a million TV shows and movies, but it's great. They were smart kids.
This could be a cruel question, but do you have a favorite child from Freaks and Geeks? Is there one where you're like, oh, James Franco, you're so... Do you have a favorite kid?
Well, I mean, look, I love them all, but Linda Cardellini will always kind of have her place in my heart because that was always my favorite character to write, because that's the only character that wasn't based on anybody. It was based on the sister I wished I had, because I was an only child and I didn't have any sister. And I always wanted an older sister, so I really kind of created her because I loved that she was sort of this really conflicted, she's having a crisis of faith at 16, and everybody else is worrying about dumb stuff. And yeah, so Linda, I love her, and she was. Finally we reunited in my last movie, Simple Favor. She came in and did a big scene for us, and it was so much fun.
Awesome. All right, so we have a bunch of questions coming in for you, and that is, what advice would you give to a budding young actress?
Oh, you know what? You learn your craft and find your voice, really. It's really important that you know who you are. I mean, when I was an actor for a long time, and when you're in acting school, it's so much about, like, you can play anybody, you have to do all these things. I agree with that, but you have to know who you are first and have what's unique about you. Case in point, not an actress, but an actor, back to Seth. When we discovered Seth in Vancouver, it was an open audition. He came in, and he was so funny with that crazy voice and everything. And when we hired him, he said, yeah, I had an acting teacher up here, and she was like, you got to change your voice and make it more normal. You'll never work. And it's like, that's the worst advice ever. Yeah. Like, if you imagine Seth Rogen, oh, hello, how are you? It wouldn't work. So you just have to find out who you are and then bring that to your roles.
Fantastic advice. Someone else wrote, you used to be a Universal Studios tour guide and an actor. What was your journey from there to creating Freaks and Geeks?
Yeah, I started as a Universal tour guide when I was 17. I went from that into being a stand-up comedian, and I did that for a while. And did it for a number of years, actually, and made my living at it. And then I was segueing into being an actor, and so it was an actor, but I'd gone to film school during all this, too. And then from acting, I was always writing and befriending the writers and hanging out with the directors on all the shows that I was an actor on, moving towards that. My goal at one point was to kind of write, direct, and star in my own movies. And I did a movie like that, but it never got released. It was a really low-budget thing. But in that, I learned, you know what? I think I'm better taking really talented people and helping guide them, and I don't necessarily need to be on camera because I wasn't a great actor, but I can see how to make other people good, I think, is my skill.
Yeah. And when was the last time you did stand up?
Oh, God, a long time. I mean, I stopped doing stand-up in 1990, so before any of you were born.
Was there a reason? Or
I burned out. You know what it was? I just kind of went... I would get up on stage. Anybody here is a stand-up or ever did it, you work your way up to being a headliner. You spend years, like, first you're the starter, and you do 15 minutes, then you're the middle, and you do a half hour, and then you work your way towards being the main event for an hour. And when I finally got to be the main event, I didn't enjoy it. I remember going on stage and going like, okay, I got an hour to do my same routine. I knew I would improvise, but I don't know. I just felt like what I didn't like is the fact that I had to recreate the performance every night, and that's why I love film. Is that if we get it right once, it exists forever.
Oh, brilliant. What's the funniest blooper moment you had while filming during last Christmas?
It has to be when Emma Thompson is singing Amelia Clark's character to sleep when she first comes home, and they could not keep it together because Emma does this really like mournful, depressing thing, and I actually cut together a 10-minute thing for when the DVD and Blu-ray comes out that just is them just losing it. It's so funny because then first Emma would lose it, and then Amelia would be under the covers just shaking, and then would yell at her. And it's so funny. So I love when actors break. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah. Emma seems to be a brilliant person to work with. How was working with her script? Because obviously you're a very accomplished writer. Did you ever feel like you wanted to give and take and push and shove and take things out of the script she'd written?
Well, we did that. She's a great collaborator because any great writer knows that they are not Shakespeare and that their words are not set in stone. And it's sort of the more frustrating writers I've worked with, and I've been lucky I haven't really, but the more writers that I know or writer-directors that I know guard their words. Like, would hear this, actors wanted to try something. They're like, I worked 3 years on that script. You're going to say it exactly like I wrote it. It's like, well, that's stupid because I don't care if you spent 100 years writing the script. Once it gets to the stage, when you're on in front of the cameras on location and it's happening, it takes its life of its own, and you got to give it over to the actors at some point. And if something happens, and you're like, ooh, that's even better. You got to go with it. And Emma completely got that.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So someone has sent in a question about Crazy Rich Asians. The breakout star Henry Golding in the film did a brilliant job. How important is it to cast diverse actors in Hollywood, do you think, currently?
It's very important. Any movie that doesn't reflect the makeup of the world around us is not valid, I feel. And so to me, it's very important that we make sure that we just have we get the best people, but we want the diversity of that. And I just like just casting and not having to explain why. It's not, why is Henry, who he is. No, it doesn't matter. Like, people, we all fall in love. We all meet people. We're surrounded by everybody. That's how we have to kind of represent the world, because that's the only honest portrayal of the world.
Definitely. So you've worked with Melissa McCarthy on several projects. Was it like to work with her? And has there been any hilarious moments while filming where she may have gone too far?
Well, you can never go too far in one of my movies, I always say. And she's so funny. We did 4 movies in a row together. We love each other. We're always in contact. We'll figure out something to do again soon. But no, my favorite thing is when she would start to do a joke and then she would go like, I can't do that. That's too mean. And I go like, oh my God, you say it, because it would always be the most brilliant gag ever. I mean, I remember when we were shooting Spy, and she's holding when Rose Byrne is holding the gun on her in the plane because she thinks she's found out that she's an undercover, whatever. And she does the thing about her mother. You go, yeah, and fuck you for comparing me to that monster.
Yeah.
You what's that? I forget the line, but you something like that once. You just drop the mic and leave. And I was just like, oh my God, it was one of the biggest laughs in the movie. But she was so embarrassed because she's in real life. She's a very nice person. I don't even hear her swear in real life.
Yeah.
But you get her in front of the camera, and she becomes these characters, and this like hilarious monster comes out of her. Oh, she's brilliant.
I mean, for me personally, I was introduced to her as an actress from Bridesmaids, and I couldn't tell if you had written the character, for her, or that she'd kind of slipped into that character. It was just, it was so unique. It was so funny. Did you work with her to create that rather vulgar character at times?
Well, see, I didn't even know her before we cast her. Everybody else knew it. It's weird that I wouldn't, because we were in the same business for a long time, and she's exactly like my muse. So, but we just never ran in the same circles. It was Kristen Wiig who brought her in, or had her come in. And no, the part was written. We'd seen a bunch of really funny people for that role, but nobody just kind of nailed it in a weird way. And when Melissa came in, she's the one that turned it into that strange kind of, we can do this. And at first I thought she was playing as a gay woman. And I was like, oh my God, what a great way to play Megan. So then we always do like an improv. And I was like, oh, let's improvise a scene where you're trying to get her to go out with you, for the night. And so then she goes, oh yeah, so we're going to go these men and we're just going to eat them alive. And I was like, wait, so what is this character? Like, and I loved it so much. And she'll tell the story. She always says that she left that audition thinking she completely blew it.
Wow.
And she left, and I was just like, oh my God, we found Megan. Here she is.
Sure, because she's one of my favorite characters in that film. Yeah. And I mean, we've had guests come on this show and talk about Bridesmaids being a huge influence on them wanting to become actresses. Cool. So when you've made something that has touched so many people, every now and then people are asking, oh, could there be a sequel, or would you bring the girls back? Is that something you've considered ever thought about?
I mean, I know the studio always wanted it. Kristen didn't want to do it right after it. And if you notice, I never do any sequels for my movies, because I feel like sequels are tough because everybody goes like, oh, well, that was so great. You just do it again. The reason that movie works, we remember all the pooping in the sink and all that stuff, which is hilarious, But the real reason that movie works is because Kristen Wiig's character, we meet her and she's just completely, her life has fallen apart. And it's all about her through her, falling apart friendship with Maya Rudolph, has to kind of become an adult and get her way through it and repair herself. That's the story. So if you do a sequel, it's like, well, Kristen Wiig can't fall apart again and have to dig out of a hole. So then you just have the trappings of like, well, we'll just have a big crazy wedding. Well, then we got to really find the emotional stakes in that to drive you along, because that's why you love that movie, even though you remember all the crazy stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, someone else actually mentioned in the film that, in the Q&A about Bridesmaids feeling like it was a realistic approach to how women interact. So how do you think you've got this insight to, real relationships between people?
It's because I work with great women. I mean, and I have, they write most of the stuff that if I don't write, I think pretty much everything I've done is from a female writer. And then I always have my producing partner, who's a woman. I deputize every actress in the cast to like call me on anything and to tell me what I'm still a guy. I'll pitch a joke and they're like, no, we wouldn't say that. It's like, oh, cool. How would you say it? I want to make the most honest thing we can. So it's really, the business needs to be this parity between men and women working together to make sure that neither one of us is stereotyping the other one, and we're finding the depth of these characters and making them real.
Brilliant. Now I wanted to step away from that for a second and ask you about Dark Army. What can you tell us about this? Because at the moment it's shrouded with mystery. I'm very curious.
And it shall remain shrouded in mystery.
Oh no! Don't do that to me.
No, I mean, look, I'm a huge fan of the old monster movies. I mean, old monster movies like Frankenstein and Dracula and Bride of Frankenstein, the ones from the 30s. Because if you watch them today, they look very antiquated and they feel very antiquated, but they're really fun. And the performances are fun because they're extreme. But everyone, like James Whale is the famous director. He and Todd Fielding were the ones that made these movies. And they just brought a real fun sensibility to them. You treat them dead seriously, you make them scary, but you just have fun. So you can laugh even when it's... I mean, it's the modern day version of that. I would say it's bananas is like Evil Dead 2, which is just, it's so funny, but it's still scary. But you're going like, oh my God, they're just having so much fun while they're making this movie.
Yeah.
And so that's what this is. And it's, there's some characters I brought from the old movies, but then I've created a bunch of new ones. And the main character is created from an amalgamation. So I'm waiting to hear if we actually get to make it. The studio's read it and they're going to let me know. So
brilliant.
Fingers crossed.
I mean, well, what is your point of view on reboots? Because it seems like, if you look what Disney's doing, there is just a reboot a minute.
Yeah.
You famously took on the Ghostbusters, and now someone was talking about doing a reboot of Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah, well, that blew up the internet.
But there was outrage online.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on doing reboots? What movies can you reboot? Which ones shouldn't you?
It's so hard to know. I mean, look, I waded into the Ghostbusters thing thinking everybody would think it was a great idea to reboot Ghostbusters, and I was told the opposite by so many people. But, I think a great idea is a great idea, and if some filmmaker has something new they can bring to it. That was my thing with Ghostbusters. I got offered it a bunch of times. No, everybody else was turning it down, and I turned it down a bunch of times. But then I kept thinking, like, it's just a great core idea. When you go, like, funny people fighting the paranormal with technology, that's just kind of a big universal idea. It got tied to that group of guys who did it originally in the 80s, and that's great. But then you go, like, yeah, but does it have to stay trapped in that? Can't we take it? But that's why I did it as a reboot. I didn't necessarily want to do it as a sequel because I just wanted to let those be their own thing and kind of do one over here. But, some people weren't happy about it, and I completely understand that. It's just, again, I think if you've got a new take on something and you can bring something to it, and you're not just kind of doing a carbon copy in a new way, then you should do it.
Yeah. I mean, is there a film that you've seen that you've loved that you would just love to do a Paul version of?
Oh, there's a bunch. There's an old sci-fi movie called Logan's Run that I always thought would make a great remake, because some of them are very, very dated, and there's not that I want to then do the high-tech version of something, but I think there's themes and stories that you go like, oh, that would be really fun to put through a modern-day lens.
Definitely. Now, before I do let you go, I know that you have a premiere to go to.
Yes, my gosh.
Paul, what do you want for Christmas?
For my movie to do really well? A new president?
Whoa!
Oops, oh no. Why did I wait into that?
You know that's going to be what's going to be.
I know that's going to be
That's going to be the
all
quote
over
from the
internet
movie.
now. Oh, well. I can't not be controversial somehow.
Yeah.
No, I just want to spend time with my wife and just be happy. And we kind of have stopped giving presents really in the last number of years, and we just kind of take each other on trips, and our time together is our present to each other.
That is very wholesome. I would expect nothing less from the director of a movie as wholesome and delightful as this. So
There you go.
Thank you so much, Paul Feig,
Oh,
ladies
yes,
and
thank
gentlemen.
you. Thank you, everybody.
Please go to the cinema. See you
Thanks.
last Christmas. This has been Build Series Sydney.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Yay.